Hi everyone, it's Professor Chew. Thank you for filling out the survey. Apologies for setting up my X and Y coordinates wrong. That is why you were not able to click on multiple responses. I'm not a professional survey maker, but I have a good idea now of when you can take the exam. So stay tuned and I will figure out classrooms and all that good stuff. Also wanted to note, I'm sorry it took me a bit long to get this video put together, but since I have taught the class a couple times, I do have some previously made videos, and certainly the information is the same as it is, but of course everyone always has different, every class always has different concerns. Which said, let us take a look at the lecture notes for this week, because there are two things that I need to highlight for you. I know that right now, I think most of you have gotten kind of a hang of the homework and what to do. So when I outline here some principles, partially because I will refer to them in responding to your homework and trying to explain, why something is something, why it is what it is. This word called euphony, which I've broken up into parts, euphone, the kind of suffix, means sounding pleasing to the ear. And that is often why certain medical terms have extra letters added, like connecting vowels. To some extent, euphony for medical terms is based on what sounds good in ancient Greek and Latin. And that's, of course, a little bit very tricky for us because most of you don't know ancient Greek and Latin. And whatever sounded good, so, the Greeks formed their words based on what sounds good to them. What sounded good to an ancient Greek does not sound good to someone in the 21st century in New Jersey or California. Maybe it does, but it may not. Again, if there are strange things that, why you don't understand why sometimes, Greek adds an N or an O, the reason is that when the scientists and physicians were making medical terms, they weren't thinking about us and us wondering why do they make these rules. They were just trying to make a word that sounded good to them. But the thing is, of course, we are stuck, as it were, with the rules. So just a reminder about connecting vowels. Until we hit lesson 8, the connecting vowel is always an O. Don't worry about adding parentheses to indicate a connecting vowel. I like to do that because it makes it clear that you have a connecting vowel. The one thing to emphasize is that connecting vowels are added for euphony to make a word sound good, and they bear no relation on the meaning of a word, like dummy letters, so to speak. Excuse my expression. What can be confusing is that a connecting vowel, or some combining forms, rather, some bases, that is, and I hope it's not too confusing that I use the separate term. It just helps me because the word base is a lot faster to type than the word connecting vowel. What can I say? Not connecting vowel, combining form, a suffix here, I should say, or a suffix or combining form. There are combining forms that begin with vowels. Oste meaning bone, or odin meaning pain, and those are ones to really look out for, along with these others, onc, tumor, oleg, few, onic, nail, as in your fingernail, when you are doing the word analysis. These forms, definitely oste and odin occur quite frequently. Odin means pain, so if you're stuck on, you can certainly, if you're breaking down a word and you're not 100% sure of how to do it, it's certainly okay to go look up a medical dictionary and see if the word means something about pain. It's probably going to be odin, or if it refers to something about a bone or about ossification, so something becoming bony or hard, it's probably going to be oste or os, the other form. So keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that some prefixes end in vowels. All these prefixes end in an O. And then some suffixes, of course, start with a vowel. And then, of course, some other suffixes start with an I. Now, for the prefixes and suffixes, you really shouldn't put the parentheses in for the vowels because the vowel is part of the prefix in these cases, or the suffix. I haven't been marking you off for doing that, but I think that it might just be, I think that actually might be making things more confusing for you. But I will say that, don't get too hung up about putting on in parentheses, because that's just the sort of format that we're using in this class to help you figure out what a base or a prefix or a connecting vowel. So that's not some kind of official, form that you have to be able to produce. I also wanted to say a couple words about the word derivation part of the homework. A couple of you have had questions about it. And I mean, you may have already read this handout, but let me explain again. So medical terms are basically formed according to a certain pattern. I mean, they have prefixes and suffixes, but often the second unit of the word, that's basically the unit right before a suffix. So that would be malak in this case for cardiomalakia. Denotes the main point of the word. It promotes, it introduces, it provides the basic idea that a word is referring to. So that's the second unit. The first unit, which in this case would be the cardio, because the connecting vowel doesn't count as a unit. It's this there again for euphony. The cardio is the first unit, and it gives some qualification. It makes it specifies something. In fact, often that second unit of a word describes some sort of abnormal condition. A lot of these terms are describing an abnormal condition, which makes the treatment, right? Or look things up on Google, for better or for worse. And then the first unit of the word actually sort of qualifies, like where, in this case, where the softening is going on. So the first unit is that it's about softening. The second is it's cardi. It indicates heart. It tells us more about what kind of softening, as it were. That the EI is almost superfluous. It notes a condition. Similarly, tachybradycardia. In this case, the cardi is the second unit, so to speak. Well, it's really the third, I guess, based because there were also two bases here. But it is the unit right before the suffix, so it's telling us this is something about the heart. And then tachy and brady, because they mean fast and slow, they tell us something about the heart, that it must be beating fast and slow. And that is an abnormal condition. Here, the unit right before the suffix is tox, so we know this, so we're looking for something poison. In indicates that it's a substance. So, when you see a word like substance or agent, you want to think of using the suffix like in. And then the qualifying point about this poisonous substance is that it has to do with the kidneys, and that would be the word neph. Now, when a word is in parentheses here for these word derivation questions, that means you don't have to provide a base or prefix or suffix for it. It's just there for your understanding. I also should say that one way to do these questions, it is true, is to take the definition and put it into Google and see what you come up with. And sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, so long as you make yourself then look at the word, break it down in parts, and think, okay, how did I get this word? Sometimes this method doesn't really work though, and you may have found that out when you've gotten your homework back. And I want you to know that if you come up with a word and it isn't exactly nephrotoxin or cardiomalakia, but it's close. And you've clearly been looking at the question and saying, okay, I need something that means substance. I need something that means poison. I need something that means blue or purple. That's a cyan. I need something that indicates the extremities. I need a word that means, I need a suffix. Suffixes are often going to be osis or ia. I mean, say you wrote acrocyonia for this, to indicate blue or purple discoloration of the extremities. That would be correct. I'm not looking for you in this section to find like the totally exact term in the medical dictionary, though it's great if you do. What I'm curious is what's your thinking process, and how are you learning the bases, prefixes, and suffixes such that you can kind of work backwards, and if you maybe made some discovery someday about something, some medical condition, you could coin your own term, right? So again, this term, and I apologize, sometimes I mispronounce these terms in these videos, and that's because in Greek, the bases are pronounced a certain way, and in English, they're different, so I'm sorry, I don't always pronounce these the way they should be in English, but I'm thinking of the way they would be pronounced in Greek. And for instance, this C in Greek is always a hard K sound. But anyways, acrocyanosis, sounds better. In this case, osis is the suffix, so the second unit is the cyan. It indicates blueness because that's what we're looking for, blue or purple discoloration. And then the O is a connecting vowel. We can ignore that, but the first unit is the ak, the iota that we're looking at the extremities. Similarly, for this last word, eubiotic, so the ix is a suffix, or that is to say the otix is a suffix. Bio is the second unit, so the unit right before the suffix, because what we're talking about here is something about living. So the word bi. And then the word eu has the meaning of, well, it means basically well, but healthy and hygienic in the sense of, living healthfully, living in a manner of observing hygiene, such as it is. So when you're doing these questions, think about it that way. You're looking for, when you look at the question and try to think, what's kind of the main idea? Like this one is about something about living in a healthful way. So living is going to be the second unit, the unit that is placed right before the suffix. And the healthy and hygienic part is going to be the first. It's qualifying. It's telling us, how can we live well? So try that. And what I'm actually going to do too is, I was initially thinking of going over all your homework in a video, but I think that would get a little bit tedious. So I don't have that quite ready on Tuesday night, but I do want to give you much more detailed feedback about the answers for lessons 1 and 2, because those are the first 2 lessons. And so I am going to do that by making some kind of handout, which I will alert you to as soon as I get it out, which I'm going to aim for is tomorrow, i.e. Wednesday, if not earlier, but Wednesday is looking a little more likely. So look for that. And then about lesson 4. Lesson 4 introduces us to bases or combining forms from Greek verbs. And I give you some explanation about Greek grammar here, about how Greek verbs are inflected. That what this basically means is that you change the endings on Greek verbs as on the endings of Greek nouns to indicate how they're used in a sentence. And you also sometimes use a different stem to indicate, in the case of Greek, different tenses. Greek is a wonderfully grammatically complex language that I explained some of that down here. Has 7 different tenses, 3 different moods. Wonderful to learn. For your purposes, though, you should just know that, in general, I guess you'd say in ancient Greek, there's a principle of like the more, the better. So some words, as you've noted, have more than one form. For instance, blood. Well, there's 3 different bases that can mean blood. And they are actually linguistically related based on spelling and other conventions in Greek. There are, for lesson 3, actually 2 forms that mean muscle. This mios is not in the textbook, what was noted on the Sakai page, so I do try to indicate that. And then you've seen some other forms too, like there's esthe and esthes, and then also kine, kines, and kinesi. Those are all possible forms, and they actually often share the same meaning. The reason in Greek that you use one or the other is because you're sometimes looking at it, writing a different tense for a verb, or sometimes, and that always affects how things are spelled. I explain a little bit more about that here. The main thing to know about lesson 4 is this part about compound suffix forms. These are listed on pages 40 and 41 and also in an appendix on 273. And compound suffix forms are created from a base, a noun and a verb, added to a suffix. And because they're used very frequently, like a lot of words use ragia, meaning flowing, or discharge. Tomi means something that's cut. So the idea is that it's good just to memorize those compound suffix forms because they do occur a lot. The other thing is that you don't have to break them down. In the past, we have had some of these forms, like the word logy, logi, meaning the study of the form, but you don't have to break it down from now on. You can just leave it as is, or you can break it down. My general principle is that it's always better to break things down more than less, because I think it's good to see the different parts. So that way, if you break down hepatotomy, it's a condition involving the cutting of the liver. Meningoragia is a condition involving the flowing or discharge of the meninges. But if you, on an exam, for instance, or on your homework or on a quiz, just left Raji like that or told me because you just, enough is enough, right? That is totally fine. So there are, in other words, there's two ways to break down the compound suffix forms. Which having said, let us take a look at just a few things in our textbook for the week. If I can get myself back to the right screen here. Hang on. Yes, and I am trying yet another kind of software. This is Google live streaming or YouTube live streaming software, which has some advantages for me. Doesn't mean I can have the little box with myself, the webcam, talking to you as I'm going over things, but you can see me here. You can see my husband's desk. His organization principles are a little different from mine. They work for him. That's good. Let's take a quick look at lessons 3 and 4 in the textbook. Just to note the basis in lessons 3 and 4, sometimes there's more than one form. So you discovered there can be dermat or just derm and also derma. This one occurring at the end of a word. For the word that means skin, for the word for ulcer, you can have the H or not. For the word for sweat, notice there are some very different forms. Hydrot with the OT added, or no H and no OT, just IDR. My recommendation is you have to learn all of these. There is no way around it. They could all occur, and they all do occur. So the best thing to do is to note all these forms in your vocabulary or on your flashcards, or wherever you are studying. You should add the meos term, which is here, to muscle, since we do see that. And you should be careful to note that there are mus meaning muscle, miket meaning fungus, and miel meaning bone marrow, spinal cord. They all look a little bit alike. That there's poly meaning gray and poly meaning many. This is the poly in like polynomial, polyester. This is actually the poly in polio because it refers to the gray matter of the brain. Somat refers to the body. Distinguish it from stomat with a T. That's the word for a mouth or an opening. Yes. And then when we went on to lesson 4, our vocabulary, again, included some alternate forms like esthe and esthe, so Janet and Jen. Or especially here, notice the ten and tenant, both meaning tendon. And ta all by itself refers to stretching. That's one to keep in mind. And then, but the main thing to really note in lesson 4, again, is the list of compound suffix forms. And these should simply be learned. You will also, I should say, need to know them not only for the midterm, but for the final exam. So the list here, actually, the advantage of them is that they are quite common, so you get to practice them a lot. That's the list. Also, if you haven't started to look at the appendices in the book, if you haven't gotten your book yet, that's another story. I know I've heard that it is sold out in the bookstore. You can get it on Amazon, I think. And as you can see, I'm actually using a Kindle version here, which I think is actually quite useful. Although I also think that having the book to write in is a good thing. So both are good. I actually have both. You should really take a look at the appendices, though. They are helpful. In this book, first is the combining forms or bases in alphabetical order with the unit indicated. The Latin ones are in italics. The Greek ones are in boldface. That shouldn't really be an issue for you, but it's good to know. Also, then there's a list of prefixes, which is very helpful because it puts prefixes together that all kind of look alike. You know, like die, we discovered, means two, but die can also be a form of dia, meaning through. Those are always good to keep in mind. There's all your suffixes gathered together. And, you know, by the way, the only issue with these lists is that it includes the suffixes and prefixes for the whole book. We have only learned some of the prefixes and suffixes. More than will appear in lessons 8 and 9. Lesson 9 has a list of the compound suffix forms. So that's simply the same information on pages 40 and 41. So that is what is going on for this week. And as I mentioned, I am putting together a sheet with the homework answers. I'm really sorry I haven't been able to get that to you faster. Hopefully now that the beginning of the semester is basically over. We won't have any more, you know, power outages or whatever, Sakai goes going up and down. I can hopefully get some of these materials to you on a more regular basis. I also should note that, yes, I am going to start a late policy this week, but I know some of you still don't have the textbook. Some of you did register late and you're still catching up. So let me know what is going on. But most of you have been doing a fabulous job of getting everything in on time, which I really, really appreciate, because I know some of the assignments are due, you know, kind of in the middle of the week. But I will always get your homework up for the next week. Started on it over the weekend, and hopefully I'm going to get these videos done a little bit earlier so you can have them to work on with your homework. So thank you for all your hard work, and also thank you for your forum posts. I love reading them. I want to respond to every single one of them, and that's pretty much not possible unless I want to spend all my time answering forum posts. Really great responses, both the introductions and also definitely about Google. My whole spiel about misinformation about autism on Google, and a lot of frustrations that I've personally experienced with that. But I'll keep reading your forum posts. If I seem to take a long time to read them, it's just because it's taking longer than I wanted to. But I will do them, and keep your questions and comments coming, and have a really good week, rest of the week. Take care.